I don't remember the exact day things started falling apart between me and Lisa. That's the funny thing about slow endings. They don't come with announcements. They creep in quietly, one small shift at a time, until one day you wake up and realize you're living with a stranger. And that stranger is your wife. At first, I thought it was work stress. Lisa had always been ambitious, and her new role at the marketing firm came with longer hours, tighter deadlines, and a more demanding client base. It made sense. We'd lie in bed at night, and I'd try to rub the tension out of her shoulders while she stared blankly at her phone. I'd ask how her day was, and she'd just say, exhausting. Then she'd roll over and fall asleep before I could even say goodnight. But over time, it stopped feeling like stress. It started feeling intentional. She was on her phone all the time. At dinner, at the grocery store, even while we were watching a movie, that damn phone was glued to her hand. At first, I didn't think much of it. We all scrolled too much. But I started noticing how she'd tilt the screen away when I passed by, or how she'd suddenly lock it when I entered the room. I tried to brush it off. I told myself I was being paranoid. I didn't want to be that guy, the insecure husband snooping through his wife's texts. Then came the excuses. She stopped wanting to go out with our friends. Every time there was a get-together, or even a casual dinner, she'd find some reason to skip. Too tired. Too much work. I'm just not in the mood. I'd go alone, making excuses for her, laughing off people's polite questions with a yeah, she's been swamped lately. But I knew something was off. Lisa wasn't just withdrawing from me. She was withdrawing from everything that used to matter to us. Her tone changed too. It was like she always had something sharp tucked behind her teeth. I'd ask a simple question, and she'd fire back with something cold and biting. One time, I asked her if she wanted to watch a movie together, and she said, "Why do you always need me to entertain you?" Like I was some clingy teenager instead of her husband. And then came the clothes. Lisa had always been stylish, sure, but lately, her wardrobe had done a full 180. Suddenly, she was dressing like an Instagram influencer. New heels, new makeup, outfits that were clearly picked to turn heads. When I mentioned it, tried to joke that she was making me look like her dad in comparison, she snapped, "Well, maybe you should try not looking so outdated." I laughed it off at the time, but the words stung. And worse, they lingered. Outdated. That was the beginning of a pattern. One where she made me feel small, behind, less than. It was subtle at first, like a tiny crack in the windshield, but spread fast. I tried not to jump to conclusions. I gave her space. I supported her career, stayed out of her way, cooked dinner when she was working late. I kept thinking it was a phase, that she'd snap out of it, that we'd find our rhythm again. After all, we had history, years of shared memories, inside jokes, lazy Sunday mornings, vacations, anniversaries, love. At least I thought it was still love. But love doesn't look at you like you're a burden. There was one night I won't forget. We were at home. She was getting ready for something, curling her hair in the bathroom mirror. I was in the doorway, sipping a beer, just watching her. And she looked right through me like I wasn't even there, like I was a coat rack or a fly on the wall. That blank, distant stare, that was the moment it hit me. The woman I married wasn't in front of me anymore. Someone else had taken her place, and I didn't even know when it happened. I wanted to ask her where she'd gone. I wanted to shake her and say, "Hey, come back. We're still in this together." But I didn't. I just turned and walked away, feeling like a ghost in my own home. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the sound of her typing on her phone beside me. Tap, tap, tap. Then a faint chuckle. Then silence. I closed my eyes and tried not to imagine who was on the other side of that screen. What made her smile when I couldn't even make her look at me? That's when I knew something had changed, and it wasn't going back to how it was. Looking back, I think I spent too long trying to convince myself that things would work themselves out. That if I just stayed patient, gave her space, supported her, eventually we'd find our way back to each other. But love doesn't work like that when it's one-sided. And I was the only one fighting. Lisa started changing in ways I couldn't ignore anymore. Not just emotionally, but physically. How she dressed, how she carried herself, who she spent time with. It was like she was trying to erase every trace of the life we'd built and replace it with something shinier, newer, more curated. She used to be laid back. We'd go out in jeans and hoodies, grab burgers, hit the movies. That was our thing. Comfortable, real. But now, she dressed like she was constantly auditioning for something. Dresses that fit like they were painted on, heels that made her a stranger in height, new makeup that I had never seen before. She looked amazing, sure, but it wasn't for me. I wasn't even in the equation anymore. I tried to keep up. Bought some new clothes, changed my hairstyle, even joined a gym. At first, she noticed, said I looked better, like I'd finally decided to stop being invisible. It wasn't a compliment. It was a dig. I could feel it. And when I told her I made the changes for her, she just shrugged and said, "You should have done it for yourself." That's when I realized she wasn't trying to improve our life together. She was reinventing hers, without me in it. She stopped holding my hand in public. I remember one day, we were walking downtown, and I reached out instinctively like I always had to hold her hand. She pulled away, didn't even look at me when she did it, just muttered something about her hands being sweaty. But it wasn't about sweat. It was about distance. It was about not wanting to be seen as mine. Then came the social distancing. Not the kind we all went through during the pandemic, but the kind you can't measure with 6 feet. It was like she didn't want to be seen with me anymore. Whenever we were out and ran into people she knew, she suddenly became this completely different person. She'd step forward, greet them with warmth and sparkle, and I'd just be standing there, some background character in her life story. She wouldn't introduce me unless prompted. And even then, it was always an afterthought. "Oh, this is Joshua, my husband." Just husband. Not Josh, not my better half or my person. Just a label, spoken like an obligation. She started surrounding herself with people I'd never met before. Co-workers, mostly from her new department. Younger, more polished, more ambitious. They had this whole vibe like they were constantly in some kind of reality show, all selfies and stories and overpriced cocktails. Lisa blended right in with them, like she'd been waiting her whole life to become part of that world. And me? I didn't fit. I was the flannel shirt in a sea of designer suits. At first, I tried to be supportive. I offered to go with her to one of their events, a rooftop happy hour thing. She smiled and said, "You sure? I don't think it's really your scene." That stung more than I let on. I told her I'd still like to be there, support her. She nodded, gave me a non-committal "we'll see," and never brought it up again. Our weekends used to be sacred. Now, they were just her time to catch up with people. Brunches, art gallery openings, networking mixers. And every time I asked to join her, she'd get this look like I was asking to tag along on a first date. Eventually, I stopped asking. She even started criticizing how I looked, something she never used to do. One night, we were getting ready to go to a friend's anniversary party, and I came out of the room in a button-down and slacks. Nothing fancy, but nice enough. She looked me up and down and said, "Is that what you're wearing?" Like I was some embarrassment she'd be seen with. I tried laughing it off. Said, "What, do I need a stylist now?" And she just said, "It wouldn't hurt." Little things like that chipped away at me. It wasn't the words themselves. It was what they meant. She was drawing a line, pushing me out of her new life. And the worst part? She didn't even seem to notice or care. We stopped doing things together. No more movie nights. No spontaneous road trips. No board games with wine on the weekends. I'd suggest something and she'd wave it off. "I'm tired, I've got plans, maybe next weekend." But next weekend never came. Our home became 2 separate orbits. She stayed glued to her phone or laptop. I'd cook dinner, and she'd eat late, if at all. I tried to spark conversations, but they never lit. She'd respond with one-word answers, her eyes never leaving her screen. One night, I asked her flat out, "Do you still want to be married?" She blinked at me like I'd asked something totally out of left field. "Why would you ask that?" "Because you don't act like it," I said. She didn't say anything for a long time. Then finally, "I don't know what I want right now." That broke something in me. Not because she was uncertain, but because in that moment, I realized I didn't know what we were anymore. Husband and wife? Roommates? Strangers? I stayed up that night, staring at the ceiling again, listening to her laugh quietly at something on her phone. That laugh used to be mine. That smile, those inside jokes, they used to belong to us. And now, they were going to someone else. It wasn't one specific moment that broke us. It was a collection of them. Small, quiet deaths that piled up until there was nothing left to salvage. I remember the night she asked me not to come with her to a work event. She didn't even sugarcoat it. We were in the kitchen. She was sipping wine, dressed to the nines in this emerald green dress I'd never seen before. I told her she looked amazing, and she barely acknowledged it. Then she said, "I think you should just stay home tonight." I blinked. Wait, what? She didn't look up from her phone. "It's just a lot of networking. You wouldn't enjoy it. It's better if I go alone." There was no discussion, no room for compromise. Just a decision already made, like she was doing me a favor. I didn't argue. I should have, maybe, demanded a real answer, insisted on being her partner, not some footnote. But I didn't. I just stood there, watching her walk out the door, and I swear I felt something inside me folding on itself. That night, I sat on the couch in the quiet, dark living room with a drink in my hand, trying to convince myself this was just a rough patch. But it wasn't. It was the unraveling. She came home late, really late. I heard her heels clicking down the hallway around 2 a.m. I pretended to be asleep. I wanted to ask where she'd been, who she'd been with. But I didn't, because deep down, I already knew the answer, or at least I knew I wasn't it. After that night, things changed, and not for the better. She stopped trying altogether. No more fake smiles, no more attempts at conversation. If we passed each other in the house, it was like two strangers sharing the same air. She started staying out more, always with some excuse. Client dinners, team drinks, late meetings. I stopped asking questions because the answers, when she gave them, didn't matter anymore. One Saturday morning, I asked if she wanted to grab brunch, something we used to do every weekend. She glanced up from her phone, eyebrows raised like I'd suggested skydiving. "I have plans," she said. "With who?" "Just people from work." "You don't think I could come?" She didn't respond right away. Then she said it, and I'll never forget how cold it sounded. "Josh, this isn't really your crowd." Not your crowd. Like I was some outdated accessory that didn't match the new wardrobe of her life. And I guess that's what I'd become. The comfortable, familiar sweater left in the back of the closet while she went shopping for silk. I started noticing things. Her phone never left her side. It went everywhere: the bathroom, the shower, the laundry room. She'd take calls on mute or disappear outside when it rang. And when I asked who it was, she'd say, "It's just work," with this tone that dared me question it. We stopped sleeping in the same bed. It wasn't an official decision, just something that happened naturally. One night, I fell asleep on the couch, and she didn't ask me to come up. The next night, I stayed there again. Eventually, I moved a blanket and a pillow to the guest room. She didn't say a word. No questions. No objections. Just silence. Like she didn't even notice I was gone. Or maybe she did, and she preferred it that way. The intimacy disappeared long before that, though. It wasn't just physical. It was the way she stopped looking at me, stopped laughing at my dumb jokes, stopped asking how my day was. At some point, I stopped offering anything at all, because what was the point? When the person you love doesn't see you anymore, eventually you start to fade, even to yourself. The hardest part wasn't the distance. It was realizing she had already moved on, emotionally, mentally, maybe even physically, and I was the only one still clinging to something that no longer existed. There was one night, maybe a week before everything fell apart, when I stood in the kitchen washing dishes and heard her laughing in the living room. A full, genuine laugh, the kind I hadn't heard in months. For a second, I smiled. That sound used to make me feel whole. But then I walked in and saw her on the couch, FaceTiming someone. I couldn't see the screen, but the way she tucked her hair behind her ear and leaned in close, it wasn't casual. It wasn't professional. When she saw me, her smile dropped instantly. She tilted the phone away, ended the call, and stared at me like I just walked in on something I wasn't supposed to see. "Who was that?" I asked, even though I already knew it wasn't anyone she was supposed to be laughing like that with. "No one," she said quickly. "Just someone from the team." I didn't push. What would be the point? Even if I had caught her red-handed, I don't think she would have confessed. I think she would have just denied it until the end, convinced that as long as she didn't say it out loud, it wasn't real. But it was real. The woman I married had left the building long ago. She just hadn't packed her bags yet. That night, I sat in the guest room in the dark and finally said it out loud to myself. She's done. And the weirdest part? It didn't even hurt the way I expected it to. It felt more like a release. like finally letting go of a rope that had been burning through my hand for months. She didn't want to fix us. She didn't want to reconnect. She'd already left. Not physically, not yet, but everything else about her had exited the marriage a long time ago. I was just the last one to notice. But not anymore. I didn't sleep the night. I finally admitted it to myself, that Lisa was already gone, just waiting for the right time or excuse to make it official. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, my mind drifting back through every red flag I'd ignored, every uneasy gut feeling I'd shoved down, every conversation that didn't sit right. I've been trying to preserve a marriage that only existed in my head. But the worst part wasn't the betrayal, not even the suspected cheating. It was realizing that I'd allowed it to get this far, that I had let myself become a spectator in my own relationship. I wasn't angry. Not yet. I was hollow, and underneath that, a slow, simmering clarity started to build. Lisa didn't just want out. She wanted to rewrite the story. She wanted to be the hero of her own narrative, the empowered woman who outgrew her boring, outdated husband. I could see it so clearly now. The reinvention, the curated image, the subtle digs, they weren't accidents. They were part of a shift she was orchestrating, a new chapter she was writing in which I was nothing but a supporting character left behind. So that's when I decided, if she was going to cast me aside, I wasn't going to leave quietly. No, I was going to show her, and everyone in her new circle, who she really was. I wasn't going to confront her directly. That would be messy, predictable, and more than anything, it would give her time to spin a story. That wasn't what I wanted. I didn't want drama. I wanted truth. Cold, undeniable truth. So, I started observing. Carefully, she had gotten sloppy. Too confident, maybe. She'd leave her laptop open sometimes, or her phone unattended when she jumped in the shower. I never thought I'd be the guy to snoop, but this wasn't snooping anymore. This was investigation. It didn't take long to find what I was looking for. There was a text thread with someone named Jay. Just a letter. That alone was suspicious. Lisa never abbreviated names in her contacts. At first glance, it seemed harmless. Surface-level messages about meetings, drinks, projects. But the tone? Too casual. Too warm. Then came the late-night messages, emojis that didn't belong in professional conversations. And worst of all, a picture of Lisa at the office, feet kicked up, drink in hand, captioned, "Unwinding with you on my mind." That was enough to confirm what I'd been feeling for months. There was someone else. And she wasn't hiding it because she was ashamed. She was hiding it because she hadn't finished replacing me yet. I screenshotted everything. Every message. Every blurry mirror selfie she sent him while I was asleep in the next room. I created a folder on my cloud drive labeled just in case. If I was going down, I wasn't going down blind. And while I was collecting receipts, I started remembering the things she used to say. Lisa used to mock these people she now bent over backwards to impress. Social ladder climbers, she called them. Image-obsessed phonies. That was only 2 years ago. Now she was hosting brunches for them and posting perfectly filtered candids like she wasn't the same person who once gagged at the idea of small talk. She thought she had everyone fooled. But I knew the real Lisa. The one behind the Instagram captions. The one who used to hate fake people before she became one. That's when the idea started forming. She had built a whole new identity around this version of herself. Carefully edited, perfectly dressed, effortlessly charming. The people she surrounded herself with now, they didn't know her. Not really. They only saw what she let them see. But I had something they didn't. History. And truth. I wasn't going to yell or air our dirty laundry in some desperate, dramatic way. No, that's not my style. But if she wanted to show off her new life in public, then I was going to bring the truth into the light, in public too. My opportunity came faster than I expected. Lisa got an invite to this upscale industry party, big networking event, hosted by some influencer-turned-entrepreneur she'd been dying to impress. And here's the twist. She invited me. She didn't do it warmly. She phrased it like an obligation. They expect couples, she said. You should come. Just try not to say anything weird. I almost laughed in her face. But instead, I nodded. Of course, I said. Wouldn't miss it. And that's when I started preparing. Not just mentally, but tactically. I pulled up old text messages, emails, voice notes she'd forgotten about. I printed out a few of them. Not all, just enough to make a point if needed. I wasn't going to make a scene. I was going to let her unravel herself. I'd say just enough, in just the right way, to let the cracks start to show. In front of the very people she'd been performing for all these months. The night before the event, I looked at myself in the mirror. For the first time in a long time, I didn't see the defeated husband. I saw someone with purpose. Someone who'd been pushed too far and finally decided to push back. She wanted a new world, a curated fantasy. I was going to bring a dose of reality, and I couldn't wait to watch it all come down.